If you are not playing big, you are doing a disservice to yourself and your future family and all of the generations to come after that, as well as doing a disservice to the world and to the good Lord that put you here. My name is Des Pena, aka the Trillionaire Woman. I manage an estate of $70 million, and I help business owners create generational wealth within their families and actually maintain it, utilizing policies and strategies that billionaires use. Now, I'm talking to you guys today about playing small and playing big. If you are playing small, you clearly have just disregarded the biggest miracle that God has bestowed upon you, and that is simply being alive. And as someone who is living, if you are living, then it is your duty and responsibility to create, to explore, to enjoy the life that we have here on earth. And if that is something that you guys are not doing, you are playing too small. And when you play too small, you do not really make an impact on much of anything. And I'm one of those people who it's like, go big or don't even bother starting. Because if you haven't developed the vision or plan for yourself, I promise you, you will end up falling into the vision and plans of someone else. And that primarily, at least that's not what I want. And I'm sure that's not what you want either, because if you're coming across this channel, you are a king, you are a queen, you understand that you are royalty and not someone's pawn. I'm going to say that again. If you have come across this channel, you understand that you are royalty. You are not someone's pawn. And when you develop a plan for yourself, you then create a strategy, which I'll be speaking about a little bit later. And when we are developing this plan and strategy within our lives, it's not always going to be clear. So that is where we have our exploration phase. Our exploration phase is where we do not have the opportunity to say no to anything that comes across our desk, because we are in the exploring phase, trying to figure out what our purpose is. It's absolutely amazing if you understand what your purpose is. But if you're someone who doesn't, that's okay too. But that is when you cannot say no. That is when you say yes to every single opportunity that comes across your way, comes across your table and comes across your way, because you need to understand that you have to say yes to everything, to try everything, to understand what you do and don't like, so that way you can start saying no. Sometimes what we need to do is explore everything and do everything, whether we like to or not, so that we can really understand what we enjoy doing and what we don't enjoy doing. And to whom much is given, much is required. So when you're playing big, you do have a bigger sense of responsibility, not just for yourself, not just for your family, not just for your friends, but for complete and total strangers, whether they be clients, whether they be employees that you're going to hire in the future. But you become responsible for these people's well-being and livelihood because you're putting food on their table. You're developing their mindset. Imagine just having 20 kids, or even more than that. Imagine having 500 kids, 1,000 kids, and they are entrusting you with whatever service or product that you're giving them to be the absolute best, and trusting that you are the person to deliver that to them, because they can always get whatever service it is elsewhere at a better price, but not necessarily the same quality or better quality. So it is your job to provide quality, because it is my belief that, you don't always have to do things right, but you should do things to the best of your ability, because you're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes at the beginning, and that's okay. That is how you learn. So you cannot be too hard on yourself. I mean, you can, but you're likely not going to end up very happy if you are. So understanding that you have to eventually forgive yourself for making mistakes along the way, because they are inevitable. And as long as you are creating these buffers and create that strategy and plan for when things don't go your way, you are then protecting not only your best interest, but the other people who you are serving best interest as well. Now, when it comes to creating a plan and a strategy, I do believe in setting goals. Do my goals always have timelines? Most of the time, yes. A lot of the time, no. These have been the same goals that I've had since I was a child, and they're very fixed. And as a result of having these fixed goals, it is a constant progression and elevation of my skill set. And future goals, shorter term goals, usually show up as a result of moving towards my bigger vision. So everything within my life is created by an ecosystem. And this is what's called system based thinking. I haven't coined the term. I guess I just coined it now. I don't know if it's actually a thing, but that's what I'm going to call it. Systems based thinking it's very similar to like first principles thinking. So if you have a big vision that you have for yourself, you want to break it down into every little task. So, for example, first principles thinking is what Elon Musk does when he's going to build his rocket. He goes, okay, what do we need? We need rockets. We need fuel. What else do we need? We need to find a way to cut costs. So let's create reusable rockets. Who do we need to create the rockets? We need our engineers. Who do we need to create XYZ part? We need our mechanics, and so on and so forth. So you keep breaking things down into smaller compartments, smaller departments. And when you do that, you have created a level of thinking that you cannot undo. This is probably the closest thing to figuring out how the universe works, because you understand that, yes, there's a whole, but there are many parts to that whole. And then you are filling in all the gaps in order to create your end result. And that's very similar to systems-based thinking. So systems-based thinking is basically first principles thinking while implementing strategies, standard operating procedures, and a seamless automation flow for your first principles thinking task. So your first principles thinking is what we're using primarily for getting our goals on the board and what we'll need macro, like a mind map. And then our systems-based thinking is how can we create systems for each of these departments in order to have seamless workflow. And when we do that, that is how we actually get to our end result. So when I create smaller goals, it's again usually part of the bigger vision that I have for myself. And that bigger vision that I have for myself is I want to be making a couple million a month profit and be able to enjoy my time with my family, playing my favorite instrument, and basically primarily being hands off. Now, I am someone who still wants to provide value to the world. I feel like if you're not someone who is providing value, and I'm not saying you have to adopt this thinking, I'm just saying me personally that if I am not providing value to the world, I feel useless. So I rather be providing value than being a bum. Because to me, that's what it is. I cannot just sit there and be a bum. I promise you guys, during COVID, when everything was closed down and I couldn't do anything because I was stuck there because I didn't have like a fully built out business at that time, I'm telling you, I was losing my mind because I could not sit still. Prior to COVID, was working at a hospital. And at this hospital, I'm taking care of people, I'm healing people, I'm checking their blood work and everything like that. And I couldn't, guys. I was losing it. So I decided to build my skill set up. And that primarily was in finance. So I started off with trading. Then I started learning about credit. Then after regular credit, I learned about business credit. And after that, it was snowball effect to life insurance policies, understanding the Rockefeller method, and so on and so forth. So as a result of learning those things, you cannot just ingest information. You have to actually implement and execute on the information that you have. If you have gathered information but have not created a plan of how to use this or implement it into your everyday life, whether it be something that is mindset, whether it be business related, or whether it be personal relationships, if you're not putting these things into practice, then you have just simply wasted your time. And time is finite. Time is one of the only things that are finite, which is why I value it so much and want to be able to do whatever I want when I want, as I please. I also enjoy making content. So as you can tell, or else I wouldn't be doing this. And that doing the things that you love every single day is typically how people want to be spending their time. And when you are spending your time doing the things that you love or at least enjoy, that is when you are actually doing a service to the world, because only you are able to deliver that. You are the one who's able to deliver that value, deliver that passion, deliver that enthusiasm, because you are uniquely created through every single experience that you've had, through every single thought that you have thunk, through every single TV show you have watched. You have curated this person who you are today. And that is the gift to the world. You are a gift to the world. And when you understand that you can actually monetize on what your gift is, then you are limitless and you are unstoppable. As a result of being limitless and unstoppable, again, to whom much is given, much is required. So usually when you get to these higher levels of achievement, you are usually bringing along people with you. You may be the leader, you may be the one at the front, but you are bringing everyone else along with you, whoever is willing to listen, right? Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. For example, most of the time, complete and utter strangers will believe in you more than your family will. And I'm not saying that this is the case for people who come from an entrepreneurial family, because I'm sure, I don't know, because I don't come from an entrepreneurial family, that they are much more supportive of people starting their own businesses and curating their own brand and things of that sort. Because someone who grows up in a traditional home like me, where everyone just works a 9 to 5 and no one ever has time for you because they're too busy working, that system was built to simply rip the family unit apart. Now, as much as there are amazing things about the Rockefellers, there are also things that are not so great. The Rockefellers are also who created the modern day school system, that we love so much. I mean, I like school, but other people I know, especially who are business owners, primarily did not enjoy school because they did not like listening to the rules. They wanted to create their own rules. They couldn't sit still, et cetera, et cetera. So they then created the life for themselves that they wanted, usually at a young age or simply by disturbing the class. So that way they can go and enjoy doing what they want in the principal's office or at the guidance counselor, whatever the case may be. And the good things about the Rockefellers are that they created a strategy, a blueprint for creating family, generational wealth that is still flourishing to this day. While the Vanderbilts, on the other hand, by third generation, the first generation made the money, second generation had a little bit less of the money, third generation, the wealth was all gone. And I am not sacrificing a majority of my life, or even half of my life, even 2 minutes of my life, to building a tremendous amount of wealth just to have 1 or 2 generations down the line squander it all. That's not what I did it for. I did it so that way my future family will have a floor. My ceiling is their floor. That is where they're starting off at. And when you are put in that opportunity to flourish, there is simply no limit to what you can accomplish. And I'm not saying you can't build something from complete scratch, because I did. I'm just saying you are at a much more advantageous position when you are put into an opportunity of being able to have more resources and relationships readily available to you. For example, Donald Trump's kids were meeting all these politicians and meeting all these real estate people because Trump is in real estate. And they have such powerful connections The minute one of the kids want to accomplish a business idea or need an investor, that is simply one call away. And when you have that type of accessibility, then you are much further ahead than someone who lacks the experience. Not only would I be passing down money, but also knowledge. And that it's something that is very important that I feel like a lot of first generation business owners are lacking. And that is passing down the knowledge from one generation to the next in that specific industry. It's okay if the kids do not want to continue that same business idea. For example, I know a family who is primarily in like the fishing industry, and only one of the 6 kids decided to move forward in being able to assist with that business. But there's a big lack of business acumen. So much so that, the lady who decided to take over completely was in a negative position financially. She was over leveraging on her personal credit, and the business owed her money, and the business is behind on bills on top of that. And in addition to all of that, they took out a really high interest rate loan. And all of these things would not have happened if there was a proper strategy in place. And unfortunately, a majority of people do not have a proper estate plan executed or even planned out prior to passing away. And the best way to make sure that probate is not involved, meaning that the governments and the courts do not get involved in your business from passing assets down from a parent to child, is to have a private trust. That is exactly what the Rockefellers use. But there are so many different private trusts. There are so many ways to actually execute on creating the private trust, and the rules can get very, very complex. And if done incorrectly, like Michael Jackson's trust was done, you can prevent a majority of assets from being passed down to your next generation, even if you put things in a trust. So if you guys would like to have a consultation regarding a private trust, go ahead and click the link below, because it is extremely important to have this in place. Michael Jackson's kid, Paris Jackson, and his other children literally could not access the house. And then on top of that, the IRS decided to audit them for $750 million after Michael Jackson passed away. So they decided to go through his finances and make a mess of everything once he was already gone. And it literally stopped all of the payments that were going to Paris Jackson and the rest of his kids. They're already distraught. Like, how would you feel if you lost your father? Come on. So now on top of that grief, courts and governments and banks are all just trying to get their fees and their fines and find ways to make more money on capitalizing on your grief. I don't know about you, but I find that to be extremely messed up. And that is the last responsibility I would ever want to put on my future children when they are grieving my loss. It is not fair. It would be irresponsible of me to not plan ahead for that. Again, link down below to schedule your private trust consultation to protect yourself and your future family and the wealth that you have created through multiple sacrifices of time, money, tears, and everything else, and time with family. This is just something that I'm very passionate about, because since I was 3 years old, all I ever wanted to do was be able to provide for my children a life that I didn't have. Because as I was growing up, all I was ever told was no, 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 because my mom was a single mom who had me at the age of 19 and couldn't afford much. I grew up in the Bronx, in Soundview. So the same place JLo grew up. So that's a little bit of a flex, but it's not like I had all of these opportunities readily available for me. Thankfully, My father did pay child support, which was able to fund my tuition for going to a Catholic school, private school, but it was not at like an elite level. It wasn't a charter school. There were no other primarily beneficial relationships. Like if your kids go to La Rosée, which is like a super expensive school in Switzerland for the ultra wealthy and the ultra rich, those relationships are valued because you have the opportunity to work together in the future or even as a teenager. And if I would have been around people who had a bigger way of thinking as being a young child, then there is no telling where I would be today. However, when you are put into the modern day school system, really the Rockefeller school system, which really just emulates jail, the cafeterias look the same. You have bells every time you have to change class, or bells when it's time to go eat lunch, and bells when it's time for recess, and you get outside time. It's very, 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 it's created in a way to create workers, allowing you not to think for yourself, not to have good critical thinking skills. Let me tell you, I don't know about you guys, but critical thinking was the hardest subject that I ever had to take in elementary school and grade school because it wasn't normal to do that. You simply were just ingesting information and memorizing it and then slapping it on a test a couple weeks later. And yes, you are understanding the concepts, if you were even understanding the concepts at all, but it's not anything that I can use today. And that really sucks because that was like 23 years wasted. And the way I would like to educate my future children is by being very hands-on. So, for example, when it's time to learn about coral reefs and marine biology, we are flying to Fiji in the private jet, and we're going to be reinstalling the coral reefs to increase the marine health in Fiji, because I know they're doing that already. And when it's time for us to learn about how people live over 100 years old, we're going to Okinawa, Japan, and we're going to live over there for like a whole month and understand that culture and what it is that they do and have them critically assess what the everyday lifestyle is of those people to understand how they can live longer. It's going to be very hands-on. I think it's called Mansory teaching or something like that. I don't really know what the term is because obviously right now I don't have kids, but this is a vision that I've created and I plan on executing that within divine timing. Sometimes things don't always happen on your time. They happen on God's time. And you just got to be patient because the vision that you have set out for yourself, I promise you, is not as big as the vision that God has for you. It is bigger, it is better, and as things are meant to happen, they will. Go ahead and click the subscribe button if you want to be notified every time I drop a new video, which is on Thursdays at 8 p.m. EST. Go ahead and click the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video.